For centuries, people have told stories about a unicorn of the sea, this incredible creature with a single spiraled horn that was said to have magical powers. Well, today, we're going to dive deep into the freezing Arctic waters to figure out what's real, what's fantasy, and unlock the amazing mystery of the narwhal.
I mean, look at it. This image has fascinated people for ages, right? A magical animal from one of the coldest, most remote places on Earth. So what's the real story behind the legend? Let's get into it and find out. So on the one hand, you've got the myth, a powerful unicorn horn that could cure sickness and neutralize poison. But then you get to the reality, which honestly is even more mind-blowing. That famous horn isn't a horn at all. It's a tooth, a single canine tooth that's packed with millions of nerve endings. It's one of the most incredible sensory organs in the entire animal kingdom.
So how in the world did this Arctic whale get such a mythical reputation? To understand that, we have to go back in time, and I mean way back. From Old Norse legends all the way to the fancy courts of European kings and queens.
The name itself is pretty fascinating. Narwhal comes from the Old Norse word narhal, which literally translates to corpse whale. Yeah, you heard that right. It's thought the name came from its splotchy, gray skin and this weird habit it has of just lying perfectly still on the surface. Kinda morbid and not quite as magical as unicorn whale, is it? So the whole legend was basically built on this trade. It was Vikings who first started bringing these tusks down into Europe, and they marketed them as real-life unicorn horns. And boy, did people pay for them. Queen Elizabeth I got one that was valued at 10,000 pounds. That was literally the price of a castle back then. It took until the 1600s for science to finally start catching up and say, hey, wait a minute, that thing comes from a whale. Okay, now let's focus completely on the science behind that tusk, because it is so much more than just a horn or a weapon. It's really a multi-tool that pretty much defines what it means to be a narwhal.
So first off, let's get it straight, it's not a horn. It is a single, super long canine tooth that bursts right through the upper lip on the left side, and you see it almost exclusively on the males. It can get crazy long, up to 3 meters, and it always grows in this perfect counterclockwise spiral. It's also hollow and, for its size, surprisingly light. And get this, very, very rarely a male can even grow 2 of them.
Now this is the number that just changes everything. Over 10 million nerve endings run all the way from the center of the tusk right to its surface. This basically turns the entire tusk into a giant environmental sensor. It can detect tiny changes in water temperature, in pressure, and even in how salty the water is. It's basically like having a super advanced piece of scientific equipment strapped to your face. And this thing is incredibly versatile. It's a sensory organ for sure. It's also a status symbol to attract a mate. Plus, it's used in this social thing called tusking, where males will gently rub their tusks together. And just recently, some incredible drone footage confirmed another use. Narwhals actually use the tusk to tap and stun fish, which makes them way easier to catch. But the narwhal is way more than just its tusk. To live your whole life in the Arctic, one of the most extreme places on Earth, you need a whole lot of other incredible adaptations. I mean, just look at how perfectly they're built for this world of ice. Unlike most whales, narwhals have no dorsal fin at all. This gives them a totally smooth back, which makes it much, much easier to swim and get around under those massive sheets of sea ice. They also have jointed neck vertebrae, where most whales are fused, which means they can turn their heads with a much greater range of motion to scan their surroundings. And they don't just live under the ice. They dive deep, deep beneath it. The deepest recorded dive for a narwhal is an absolutely astonishing 2,370 meters. That is nearly 1.5 miles straight down into the ocean. That 1 feet alone makes them one of the deepest diving marine mammals on the entire planet. So to pull off those insane dives, you have to be able to hold your breath for a really, really long time. A narwhal can stay underwater for up to 25 minutes on a single breath. Their muscles are just packed with this oxygen-storing protein called myoglobin, which lets them hunt in the crushing blackness of the deep ocean where all their prey hangs out. So what are they even eating down there? Well, it turns out they have a very specialized diet. Greenland halibut and different kinds of cod make up almost all of their food. And because they don't really have any other functional teeth besides that tusk, they eat in this really unique way. It's believed they just swim right up to their prey and slurp it into their mouths with some powerful suction. These animals aren't just incredible survivors, though. They also have these really complex social lives. So let's take a look at how they talk to each other, how they form family bonds, and how they live out their surprisingly long lives. So, narwhals usually live in these small family pods, but in the summer, they can gather into these huge groups of over 1,000 individuals. They communicate with a whole range of clicks, whistles, and knocks. And here are two wild facts for you. Females can live to be over 100 years old, and they are one of the very, very few species, besides humans and some other toothed whales, that are actually known to go through menopause. But for an animal that is so perfectly adapted to its ancient, icy world, our modern era is bringing a whole bunch of new and really dangerous challenges, and their future, unfortunately, is anything but certain. Narwhals are really facing this trifecta of modern threats. Climate change is the #1 issue because the melting sea ice just disrupts their entire way of life. Then you have increased human activity up in the Arctic, which means more noise pollution from shipping and oil exploration, and that can really mess with their migrations. And of course, they still face the classic natural dangers, like being hunted by orcas or getting trapped by rapidly freezing ice. And this quote, well, it really says it all. Out of all the mammals living in the Arctic, narwhals are considered among the most vulnerable to a warming planet. They are such creatures of habit. They stick to the same migration routes and feeding grounds year after year, which means they aren't great at adapting on the fly to a rapidly changing environment. Their survival is literally tied to the ice. And so that's where we have to end. For 1,000 years, the narwhal has been this timeless myth in our imagination. But as its real-world home disappears, we're forced to ask a really tough question. Will the narwhal itself be able to stand the test of time?